Hey friends, ever been frustrated with your buying experience when going into a retail store or when trying to get service after the sale? Today we're going to review how you can prepare for your buying experience. I'll share with you some eye-opening statistics, and I'll give you the number one thing people get frustrated with when buying at the retail level. Let's start off with my experience the first time I went to buy some furniture. I was about 17, almost 18 years old, and I knew nothing about buying products. I had zero credit and had no one to guide me on this process. So I strolled into what once was a McMahon's furniture store, who is now out of business. They were a large national chain. And when I walked in, the salesperson basically said, what can you afford? And I said, I don't know what I can afford. I just need a bedroom set. So as we wandered through the store, we ended up settling on this lacquer bedroom set with these crazy lamps, and they gave me like a bed package, and from there they ended up giving me like a living room set, and we added in all of this product, and I think the total price was like $239 a month or something like that. I knew nothing about what I was doing. I knew not how to buy. I didn't know anything about quality. I didn't know anything about negotiating, financing, etc. So bottom line is I walk out of this store after, an hour and a half maybe, with a black lacquer bedroom set made out of basically MDF, medium density fiberboard, heavy kind of speaker box material, and a plastic laminate on the outside. And then a southern print, a southwest print sofa and love seat that had been sold and returned and resold a few times. And now I was buying it, all for the low price of $349. The product was not of the best quality, if you will, but I now had furniture for my first apartment with some friends, and it was pretty exciting. It was a good experience, but I've learned a lot since then, and now I'm going to deep dive into some of the things that I've learned. The first thing you should do is consider your price considerations when shopping. What is your budget? And I know when people ask you when you walk into a store, well, what's your budget? It's kind of a ridiculous statement, because at the end of the day, you're going to buy what you want. You're going to have an emotional attachment to some degree, and you're going to eventually figure out how to buy it. It could be financing, credit card, cash, or all of the above. But the whole budget thing is kind of a ridiculous statement. It's my budget is $500, or what's your budget? Well, my budget is $200 a month, etc. You really should consider this before you go into the store. If you're going to pay cash, that's one thing, but most people buy by way of financing or credit card. And so these are things you want to think about, because if you put it on a credit card and only the minimum monthly payments and you don't pay it off in full, that product could end up costing you up to 2 to 3 times as much as you paid for it if you take 2, 3, 4 years to pay off that credit card. So if you can, you want to try to pay cash. And in the cash example, you may have a fixed budget. It may be, no, I only have $700 cash. But if you're doing a credit card or financing, oftentimes you're going to be lured into buying more product and paying payments. And that's perfectly fine, but I would encourage you to have a plan so that you can pay it off in a certain amount of time. An example would be when you walk into a store and you're not paying cash, you want to be upfront with the salesperson. Hey, I want to plan on taking advantage of your 90-day same as cash option with financing, and then I'm going to pay it off at the end. Or I would love to take advantage of your 5-year financing option, right? So you may have to put like $500 down and then do 60 equal monthly payments. Or maybe it's 60 equal monthly payments with no money down. There's lots of financing options, but be ready to share that with the salesperson so they can prepare you. I'll give you an example. If you're going to buy a vehicle, right? So outside the furniture business, let's say you go to buy a vehicle and they give you 1.9% APR financing, et cetera. Well, just keep in mind that there's a good chance you're not going to be able to negotiate off the price of that vehicle, because the dealership usually pays for that financing. They buy down that financing to give you a really good rate. You might be able to negotiate your price down if you're not utilizing the financing. And in some cases, the banks will give the dealerships kickbacks if they give them a certain amount of financing. And so you want to be mindful of that stuff. So just price consideration and financing considerations are really important when you're going into the store. You want to be mindful of about how much you want to spend, knowing that you may go a little higher, you may go a little lower. Are you going to finance it and use payments? Are you going to pay cash, credit card, etc.? And be upfront with the salesperson when you walk in. It'll make for a much better experience. On to number 2, negotiating and emotional intelligence. This is important. When I talk about emotional intelligence, we all have emotional intelligence to a certain degree. But what happens is we have that fear of missing out when we walk into a store. We get lulled into this false sense of security. Payments, I can afford another $25 a month. And we end up upgrading everything that we went in to buy. getting ourselves into a situation where maybe we can't afford it down the road. But it doesn't matter when you're in the heat of the moment. So I always tell people, have an emotional plan before you get in there. Don't get so excited and fired up that you spend your rent money on a piece of furniture or a vehicle or a monthly payment that you can't afford. You want to be real with yourself and say, okay, you know what? I have done a budget at home, and I know that I can afford $179 for 5 years, knowing that I'm going to pay more for that product if I finance it or put it on a credit card, but I'm okay with that. That's fine. Or I'm going to take cash out of my savings account, and I'm going to pay cash for this item. And maybe perhaps the item's $1,000 and you're going to negotiate down because you're paying cash. Just keep in mind that not everybody will negotiate just because you're paying with cash. But if you are going to pay with cash, maybe perhaps you can have in your mind that you're going to spend $800 instead of $1,000, but you want a $1,000 product. So go in there with that mindset. And again, be upfront with salespeople. Remember, salespeople are people too. They're just like you and I. They're folks that are trying to make a living. And oftentimes the negotiation process is out of their control. By and large, these retail organizations have lots of expenses and overhead, right? They've got the light bill, they've got the insurance, the other utilities, they've got payroll, overhead, warehouse guys, delivery, insurance, maintenance on the building, et cetera, et cetera. So, it may feel good to go in there and overpower a salesperson by saying, you've got to save me $500. But remember that there is a lot of cost that goes into that product, and there's a lot of cost that goes into having the service with that salesperson taking care of you. And beyond that, the service after the sale, right? The store has to take care of you for many, many years. So be mindful when you're going in to negotiate. Keep in mind, are you paying cash? Are you financing? Do you want things thrown in? Are you working on the intangibles? We'll talk about here in a second. And then just detach yourself from that emotional attachment that you have to the product, or the fear of missing out, or the ad that you saw. Stephen Covey used to have this saying, a satisfied need no longer motivates. And I love that. So when I go to shop for products, the first thing I think about is, do I really need this product, or do I really want this product? And how am I going to feel about this product in 6, 12, 18 months, 5 years down the road? And oftentimes I'll shop online for a while, I'll look at some things, and I'll think about it for a week or so. And then I'll go in when I've kind of worked that out of my system, the excitement of it all. And then sometimes I go in and the salesperson will educate me and I'll end up adding items to that sale. But I feel good about it because I took the time to think through it and I had a plan when I walked in. This takes me to number 3, prepare for your engagement with the salesperson. Again, remember, they are people too. So when you walk into a store, oftentimes they're going to say, well, what brought you in? Or how can I help you today? Or my name's Joe, or what's your name, et cetera, et cetera. Be prepared. Make sure that you share with them, hey, I'm looking to buy a sofa and love seat today. I'd like to spend somewhere between $800 and $1,000, and I want to utilize financing today, blah, blah, blah. Give them part of your plan so that they can help you. They are there to guide you. Remember, a salesperson's sole job is to build value, to educate you, and to earn your business. They're there to help you solve your problem. So you don't want it to be adversarial, right? Salespeople are people too. But if you go in with a plan, it's going to help things along a lot better. Keep in mind, if you don't mind waiting, tell them that. If you need a product within 3 days, tell them that. If you've been shopping and you found it somewhere, but you didn't like the engagement you had with that store or that salesperson, tell them that. Hey, I've been shopping over at so-and-so and I just had a bad experience, but I saw something there I really liked and it was this price. Remember, these stores and salespeople, they're doing their competitive shopping as well. Everyone is out there to earn your business. Everyone wants to give you the best deal because they want to earn your business, but you've got to be upfront with them, right? This takes me to number 4. Consider the intangibles. We talked briefly about the financing options, right? Financing cost. It costs the retailer or it could cost you. Now, in some states, it's illegal for people to pad the price of a product to give you extended financing. Oftentimes, retailers cannot do that. But keep in mind, you may not be able to negotiate as much if you have financing in the deal. You want to consider protection plans. These are really important. There are some protection plans, in my opinion, that are well worth it. Furniture is one of them. There are protection plans or extended warranties that are not worth it, in my opinion. In most cases, those are automotive extended warranties, but there's everything in between. Again, these are things that you're going to want to vet. So I would encourage you to ask the salesperson, what does the extended warranty or protection plan look like? What are the details, right? Read the fine print. Ask them, what is the service after the sale with these types of products and things of that sort. Talk about delivery. Are you going to need delivery? Make sure that you share this with the salesperson ahead of time. They may be able to negotiate it in. It's likely they can't because there's a lot of cost associated with that. And don't expect them to throw everything in. When you go to a restaurant to get some food, you don't say to the server, "Oh man, I would love one of those appetizers. Oh, thank you for the appetizer. And by the way, you're going to throw that in." It doesn't work that way. There is cost associated with everything in retail. And while there can be some sacrifices made, it's not like these guys have the ability and the margins to just toss everything in for you. And don't be misled by what you see online. Sometimes you'll see package pricing where maybe there's delivery and freight and returns and such online. But again, you've got to read the small print, especially when you're dealing with larger products. Oftentimes you can have restocking fees, or within a certain time frame you have to report it before you can return it. So it's not always what it seems. Make sure that you're upfront with people so that you can have the most clean and exciting and fun buying experience with the salesperson. They're there to help you. That takes me to number 5, the company's profile. Did you look up the company's profile before you went in? Did you check out their website? Did you check out reviews, previous ads, things of that sort? It's very important. Now, we all know that you can buy reviews online, but there are a lot of really honest consumer reviews, and you can tell by the way they're written. So I would encourage you to read some of those. I would encourage you to ask some of your friends and family, have you ever shopped there? What was your experience like, etc. It's nice to have referrals, but oftentimes furniture stores or even other stores you might buy at, like, automotive dealership or whatever, they're not going to be able to give you first-hand referrals, but oftentimes you can see those online. The other thing is figure out how long they've been in business. Is that important to you, that they're a generational store, that they're a local store or a national chain? There are variances in these types of stores, and I would encourage you to research that as well. Bigger is not always better. We'll get to that in a second. Next, we're going to talk about service after the sale. This is really important and kind of hard to quantify, right? Because you won't know until you have an issue. But again, reviews can be telling. This is service after the sale with the retailers, service after the sale with the manufacturers, service after the sale with the protection plan companies, all of that, right? I have seen oftentimes, and I've personally seen this with companies where the service after the sale is phenomenal. And I saw through the reviews that the service would be amazing after the sale. Other instances I didn't pay attention to, or didn't pay attention to the reviews and got burned on service after the sale. Well, you should have read the small print. And that's where it can catch you. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to service after the sale. Now, when you go into a store, you could ask the salesperson, hey, what's your return policy? What's your service after the sale? What happens if I have an issue with my product, right? Now, in this case would be if you didn't buy an aftermarket protection plan, you were relying only on the store and their warranty. That's where you're going to want to really dig into how they handle the service after the sale. And they might tell you, we have in-store service techs, or, I'm the owner and, my son here who works with me, he goes out and does it. We repair stuff all the time. Here's a list of customers. They might even give you a referral on how it works from a customer that's someone who consumers can call on a regular basis when they need like a good recommendation or whatever. Bottom line is you need to understand how it works. What happens? Am I out in the dark? Am I on an island? Or are you going to be taking care of me after this process wears out? The last thing is oftentimes stores don't have a service beyond the manufacturer's warranty. So if the manufacturer's warranty is 1 year, after a year, if you didn't buy a protection plan, you're stuck dealing with it yourself. So you might ask them, hey, since I didn't buy the protection plan, after, let's say, the year warranty wears out, or 2 years or whatever, do you have a list of service techs that I can perhaps put on my call list so that I can call them if I do have a problem? Next, I want to talk about the small print. This is so important. Now, with most retailers, they're not trying to smoke and mirrors you. They're not trying to hide things from you. They put the small print in because they want to cover themselves and they want to be transparent. But where people get caught up is the difference between a retailer's warranty, or what they will do for consumers at their level, the manufacturer's warranty, the product that the retailer is representing that you are buying, and or the aftermarket warranty, right? So there's like 3 different policies there that you need to understand. If you're only buying furniture from a store or a product from a store, or even a dealership, you're going to have a very specific warranty and coverage and service. Now, oftentimes, retailers will take care of you because they want to uphold their good reputation, right? But they can only do so much, and they would go out of business if they took care of you for the rest of their lives, right? Consumers own furniture anywhere from average, let's say, 6 to 10 years before they change it, depending on upholstery versus case goods. You're going to be a consumer tied to them for a long time. And if they do a good job, you might be a lifetime customer. So they want to take care of you, but they can only do so much. That's where the manufacturer warranty comes in. And so oftentimes after they, let's say a 90-day coverage for you locally, they're going to say to you, now you have warranty coverage from the manufacturer. You may have to call the 1-800 number and get parts directly from the manufacturer. Or the dealer might get the parts from the manufacturer and then ship it to a technician, and now you're responsible to pay the technician after the warranty wears out. There's lots of things that you need to pay attention to so that you're not upset. The whole goal here is to educate you so you have a plan going in, so you're not upset after the sale, because this is just the way retail works. You know, the customer is not always right. Oftentimes it's right there in print and the customer is not paying attention to any of this stuff. So we want to help you be in the know. Now, if you have a protection plan, you'll have the retailer's coverage, if any. You'll have the manufacturer's coverage, and once that wears out, you'll have your aftermarket protection coverage coming in to cover you, which is great. And oftentimes those can be pennies on the dollar on a monthly basis. You know, let's say an aftermarket protection plan might cost you anywhere from $100 to $200 or $300 for a $1,500 to $3,000 purchase, right? And if you divide that over, say, 5 years, which is the average coverage, that's pretty darn good coverage. So you definitely want to consider the aftermarket protection plans. And I've researched these thoroughly. I'll send out a future video on automotive warranties, extended warranties versus furniture protection plans. But in my opinion, the furniture protection plans tend to be worth it, especially if you're buying more expensive case goods, leather products, or products with, let's say, power and function and things of that sort in them. If you have a really low ticket, it's a little more difficult to justify the price point, but it's all based on how much you pay for the product and how much they're charging for the aftermarket protection plan. Sometimes they're called warranties, but I call them protection plans. So I want to share a couple stories with you here on my retail experience where I had, say, a good and a bad experience. You know, I went into Best Buy a little while ago, and I was in a hurry and I needed a 35mm lens. So on a whim, I bought it, even though I could have ordered it from Amazon. And I order a lot of product from Amazon because the return policy is so liberal. It's the same thing with Costco or Nordstrom or some of these other places. A lot of the time I will go to those places first because their return policies are very liberal, and I like to change my mind with things. You know, sometimes things don't work out, or I'm experimenting with something and I don't use it, but I want to be able to return it. But I needed something quick and Best Buy had it, so I went and bought it. I bought it, I put it on the camera. It didn't work to the extent that I saw online that it would work, so I needed to return it. I went back in and they said, well, you do know there's a restocking fee. And I said, no, I didn't know there was a restocking fee. The salesperson yesterday told me I could return it if there was an issue and never mentioned a restocking fee. And the lady at the counter said, well, it's in the signature. When you electronically sign, there's a document there when you sign like 3 times that talks about our return policy. And I'm like, well, I don't think that's really fair. I'm like, I didn't even use it. I put it on. It didn't work per what the salesperson told me, and he never mentioned it. And I'd like you to give me all my money back. And she said, well, that's our policy and we can't give you all your money back. So on a $200 lens, they charged me like $30, 15% return policy. And I was pissed. It really bothered me that they charged me that. And I'm like, well, this is why I don't buy from organizations like you. And I just order everything online, because I could have got this lens for just about the same price. Sometimes Amazon is higher, and probably for these reasons. They're liberal on the return policies and they stand behind their consumers, which is me. But they charged me anyway, and I was really irked. And I left and I vowed to never go back and buy again. Nothing against Best Buy because it was in their policy. I just didn't pay attention because I was in a hurry. And I was of that mindset, the Costco, the Nordstrom, the Amazon, that if I had a problem, I could just bring it back. And of course, the salesperson was talking to me about all the gadgets and the buzzwords and the bells and whistles, and not talking to me about anything that had anything to do with the fact that I was going to be charged $30 if I brought it back the very next day with the same packaging and everything. So that's my fault, but it was still frustrating, and I probably won't go back there and buy again because it seems ridiculous that I could buy something off their shelf, bring it right back, and they're going to charge me $30, whereas Amazon, I can ship it right back and they're not going to charge me anything. And who knows, maybe their policies will get a little tighter, but that's the reason I give Amazon a ton of my business, right? I know some people don't like them, but man, they make it really easy, and they ship the damn thing within like 24 hours or whatever. It's pretty good. So be aware. The next thing I want to talk about is a good experience I had. Now, I happen to drive my car a lot, and so on the last vehicle I had, I put a clear coat over the hood, and it helped protect from scratches and dings on the hood. I have this white SUV, and it has some black accents, and I went in to buy a cover for the hood, and I dealt with the salespeople, and I went with this matte black, they call it a vinyl wrap, and I left, and then I ended up coming back to talk to them about putting some more vinyl wrap up on the top to take the white and turn it black and make it look very uniform, black all over. And this was a place that I researched online thoroughly, and they had really good reviews, dozens and dozens of local reviews. And I happened to go into the dealership to talk to them about an oil change, and the dealership gal who was running the service counter actually mentioned those guys in a conversation we had. She said, man, I had such a great experience with them. And I thought, man, this is great. This is what you're looking for when you go in to buy. So I was preparing. But when I went back in, the owner said, man, you really should have done gloss black. You put matte black. And he said, you know, it would look a lot better with everything. And the owner was talking to me about this. He said, I'll tell you what, If you want to go gloss black after we do the top in gloss black, I'll give you basically 50% off of it to switch, right? And that's huge because that's probably their cost. I mean, he said, I think you're going to love it a lot better. And the guy should have talked you into putting gloss versus matte black. He just was really nice about it. And so I did it. And man, I was so happy with the result. It turned out great. And I should have listened to them in the beginning because they tried to tell me that. They said, some of your accents are gloss. You shouldn't have gone matte. They really cared. But here I am with my blindfolds on thinking, oh, the salesperson's just selling me something. Maybe it's more expensive for the gloss versus the matte, blah, blah, blah. I should have just listened to those guys because they truly were trying to help me. And the owner did me a solid by giving me a discount. So I had some other things done to the vehicle. And one of the things went wrong. I called. The owner said, nope, come in. We're going to take care of you. He did some things for me for free, took care of me. I ended up going back there again. It was a scratch. He replaced the panel for free. And I was talking about gloss for my wheels. And he said, listen, I just went and bought a case of this, gloss stuff. He said, it doesn't splatter. It doesn't do this, doesn't do that. I go, oh, let me see what it looks like. He brought it out and he goes, don't worry about it. I have a ton of it. Here's a whole bottle. He gave me this $30 bottle of treatment for my tires because I had wheels and tires on the vehicle, newer wheels and tires on the vehicle. That is service after the sale. He has a lifetime customer. And I said to him, I'll be sharing this with you, with people, because I want people to understand what service after the sale is like. Not only that, he made some phone calls for me and got me some suggestions on some other things that I was looking for my vehicle and just really took care of me. And I felt like he really cared about what my needs were. And his associates did as well. And I probably should have just listened to them from the very beginning and I wouldn't have had these issues. But it was the way he made me feel. Now, I detached the emotional part. I needed something for my vehicle, but I wasn't tied emotionally. Could I have gone to other places? Sure. And I've done that where I've shopped 3 or 4 places at a time to try to figure out who had the best price, the best service. And sometimes you'll find when you do that, and I encourage you to shop 2 to 3 places, you'll find that one person doesn't call you back, another person never gives you a quote. You go in and they won't write things down for you because they're afraid you're going to take your quotes somewhere else, which is ridiculous because in this world, you can reach anything with the click of a button or talking to Siri or whatever. And you'll really find out where their character is and where their service is after the sale. If they're doing those things ahead of time, they're probably going to do those things after the sale and probably ignore you when you have issues and stuff. So it was a really great experience. And I love telling people about the company and what they did for me. And I want them to have all the business in the world because I know they're going to take care of anyone I refer. Whereas when someone asks me about, Best Buy, I'm going to probably blast them for the return policy, even though I will share with them I was in the wrong. Still frustrating, right? So these are some things you want to be aware of. And I have lots of examples of buying and selling experiences that I've had, but those were 2 quick ones. Mom and pop shop, window tinting, vinyl wraps, things of that sort, and a big national chain. And oftentimes maybe they're not as flexible as the small stores. So bigger is not always better. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not, but be mindful of that too. Sometimes you'll go online and you'll look for the top manufacturer, the top retail store, the top whatever. You still have to vet the process. What's the service after the sale? What's the relationship with the salesperson? Do they seem genuine? Are they asking me the right questions? Are they trying to help me or are they trying to sell me? Right? Are they trying to educate me so I can make the right buying decision? Or are they just trying to sell me something because they get an incentive for selling it? It's important. And just because this name brand has 500 stores doesn't mean they're going to be the best at what they do. So you still want to shop a handful of stores. And it's not always about price. For me, it's kind of a 50-50. I want to feel like I got a good deal, whatever that means. And I want to feel like these people care and they're going to take care of me after the sale. So for me, that's how I weigh the value proposition. So earlier we talked about retail and how a lot of these stores, they're running a business and they have overhead, they have expenses. They're not somebody you can just walk into and say, I need you to drop your price $500 out of nowhere. It's like 30% off the product. Understand that, your retail margins across all these retail spectrums shift dramatically, right? So like at a wholesale level, I don't know, some of these manufacturers wholesale might have a 3 to 10% margin, right? Not a lot, but they're banking on volume. Retail establishments, they might have margins anywhere from 12% all the way up to 55%, right? But remember that 12% to 55% is covering their power, their utilities, their overhead, all these expenses, service after the sale, right? Emergencies, things of that sort. So just because someone is making a profit doesn't mean they're working you over. Now, can you ask, well, hey, can you throw in delivery? Or can you save me a little on protection plan? Or can you save me $50 or $100 off this sofa if I buy sofa love chair, ottoman, and a mattress or whatever? Absolutely, it's reasonable to ask that. But if you don't get it, you're going to have to weigh. Do I feel good about this store and that they're going to take care of me? Or do I want to go to this other store because I know they're going to give me that $200 off that I asked? Remember, it's about more than just price. So you want to be mindful of how the store functions and how it stays in business, because the last thing you want to do is negotiate these guys down, get the best deal, and then 2 years later they're out of business and it didn't matter anyway because you have zero service at this point, right? Okay, so some interesting statistics from Statistia. They stated that 35% of consumers stated that they were loyal to one furniture store. I found that really interesting. Now, if you think about it, with all the internet stuff that goes on out there, it's probably not helping the loyalty concept, right? Back in the day, you had to go into a brick and mortar store. You really didn't have an option. And obviously with expenses and such, with gas and travel and all of that, you would probably go to a store within a 10-mile radius, right? And nowadays, you're finding that more and more stores are consolidating and there's not as many options. You're seeing more options online. But you can all attest to buying, say, a sofa or a recliner online is not easy. You want to sit on it, touch it, feel it. So you got to kind of explore locally to do that. And remember, just because it's online, when you add freight and all that, it's not necessarily the best deal. So what you want to do is put the store in the best position to earn your business and create a lifetime customer out of you, which is why the goal today is to try to educate you on how you can be the best prepared for someone to earn your business, right? If you come in with a prepared plan, then they are going to be able to help you get to that decision a lot quicker. It's going to make for a much better buying experience, right? The other thing we found interesting in the Furniture Today magazine was they had mentioned that after COVID, because so many people were so used to ordering online, that 51% of consumers prefer to buy their furniture online. That's shocking. 49% say that they'd prefer to go to a brick or mortar store. The reason it's shocking is because just 4 or 5 short years ago, not that long ago, less than 10% of all furniture was bought online. Today, it's probably less than 25% because, again, remember, there's a lot of larger items that are just hard to ship or consumers aren't as comfortable. But, we also, a lot of us said we'd never buy a mattress online, and many people do today. So how does a brick and mortar store earn your business to bring that number down? Remember, there's a lot of cost that goes into these buildings, but there's a sense of comfort that comes with you walking into a brick and mortar store, engaging with a salesperson, getting the service after the sale, and then buying that product and going there generation after generation. We all know how difficult it can be with some manufacturers to return products, especially without costs, right? And deal with online service and 1-800 numbers. So there's a certain level of comfort that comes with buying in the brick and mortar store. So I encourage you to continue supporting your local brick and mortar stores, but don't be afraid to shop a little bit online and do your research. Okay, so the number one thing that consumers hate about retail shopping is deceptive advertising practices. And we've all seen this before. Save 80% off, save 20% off, remodeling sale, buy one, get one free, whatever it may be. They're not always meant to be smoke and mirrors or deceptive, but it can be deceptive. This is why it's important. I put the onus back on you, the buyer, to make sure you're educating yourself. There's nothing wrong with calling the store and saying, hey, I saw this ad. I just want to clarify. Is that a specific product? Is it limited inventory and you're going to run out? Do you have them still? What's the size of that sofa? Is it 30 inches wide, or is it actually a full-size 90-inch wide type of sofa, et cetera, right? We get frustrated because we rush in based on emotion. This is why I say you got to detach your emotion and educate yourself. We rush in based on emotion thinking we're going to miss out, and then we get all upset with the store. And oftentimes the store is not doing anything deceptive. It's perceived that it's deceptive. They're usually following the guidelines because they can get in trouble with the state if they don't. Now, of course, there's instances where that's not the case, but by and large, most retailers are just trying to earn your business. They're just trying to create some excitement. And oftentimes they're buying product in a truckload deal or getting a discount with volume. Maybe they got a deal from the financing company to push some financing. And so they're trying to pass that on to you. But if you don't pay attention to the small print, read everything in the ad, maybe call the store or email them, get on their social media or whatever, and verify, then it's going to be a frustrating experience for you. You are not always in the know, even though you have Google at your disposal, right? Okay, so would you consider building a strategy before you go into a brick and mortar store? If so, please share your comments below. I know for me, it's made my buying experience much, much better. And if you like the channel, please subscribe and tune in next time as we talk about the products that we buy and sell and love.